What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Vocab Malone in the house tonight. How y'all doing? Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Welcome to a Friday night edition of Street Apologists Live. You guys know it's February. You guys know that people mark this as Black History Month. And yes, I have blue cupcake on my fingers. I was feeding the whole neighborhood earlier with cupcakes, and it's hard to get that blue cupcake off you. Anyways, it marks Black History Month, and so part of what I'm doing here on the channel is 5 different installments of 6 historical figures each. We could make it thousands, literally, but it's just 30 as of now. And I'm very excited about it. And I just fixed my microphone. I heard somebody say my mic wasn't right. Thank you. You guys are my audio sounding board. While we're getting everything set up, could you guys please go ahead and share this link? Be sure to grab this link, share the link. We're going to get the show started. We're doing 6 more figures tonight out of church history, and they will be evangelists and missionaries. Now, these categories are very difficult to make because they kind of overlap, and a lot of these folks you can put in different categories, but I did as best I could to give it some kind of semblance and of kind of a reason or whatever, and I think it's good. All right, so anyways, man, it's very beautiful to see all you guys, and it's very beautiful to be here on a Friday night. What is the date? I always give the date. Oh, it's February 8th, and it's about 10 till 10, and we got Top Student already coming in with the super chat. Thank you very much. You guys know the rules. If we get 50 in the super chat, we do a freestyle, and if we get 100 viewers, we do a freestyle. So make sure everybody to grab this link and share it and hit that like button with your fingers, please. Boom, boom, boom. A special guest tonight to help us walk us through this awesome inspirational stuff, Pastor Isaiah Robertson. I'm going to show you his face here in a second. He hails from Georgia, Cartersville, I believe, Macedonia Baptist Church, and he knows this stuff like, man, the back of his hand. I got to refer to notes, but he just knows it. So I'm very glad to have him, and I'll be his apprentice tonight, and he will... Oh, that's from the last show. Hold on, let me switch the template. All right, here we go. What's up? Welcome to the show, Isaiah Robertson. There you go. There's your spot in the camera. Back where you were. Hey, so what's under your hat, man? Oh man, now I'm almost curious, man. I wonder, like, what's the level of, like, raw? You know, what level is it? You met the band raw or what? Roots raw. Oh my goodness! Oh, you went there. Jeez. All right. Well, no Jordy LaForge tonight. All right, check it out. Tell people a little bit about yourselves and how did you get in to this? Because everyone doesn't have a passion or the time, you know, they don't make the time, I'll put it that way, to get into some of the stuff we're getting into tonight. So who are you and how'd you get there?
Lauren Robertson, have 5 kids, and man, what sparked my interest in Black church history was really my journey into Reformed theology, right?
So you're Reformed, I take it.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am definitely Calvinistic in my soteriology. But after embracing Reformed theology, the culture got to me, man, and the theology, although it's beautiful, it has a tendency of colonizing the minds of people of color. So I ended up becoming bitter towards the context from which, I came, the Black church, because I felt like they withheld the truth from me. They didn't teach me sound doctrine. And I really railed against the Black church for a good little bit until thankfully the Lord humbled me and showed me, really the beauty of the Black church and the asset that the Black church has been in his hands. And so it just really sparked a desire for me to study it, a desire for me to know it, and a desire for me to convey the truth to people that were misrepresented, and just, really destroy this false narrative that the Black church is theologically confused or the Black church hasn't helped black people, or the black church somehow is really negatively impacting the plight of black people in America today. So, you know, in order to dismantle that absurd argument, you have to know the history of the black church, and you have to know the contributions the black church has made, not just to Christianity, but to civilization. Period. So, yeah, man.
So, have you been able to bring these truths, these facts from history that you've learned into your preaching, into your ministry?
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's helped to really spark. We're going to talk about it tonight, but it's helped to really spark a missionary zeal and passion in my local congregation. It's also helped them to understand the importance of activism and social engagement, because that's always been sort of a part of the DNA of the black church. It's really inspired my congregation. The history has really inspired my congregation to sort of take the torch, take the baton from the matriarchs and patriarchs that came before us, and be the church that God has called us to be. From its inception, the black church, was a countercultural institution, and so that's who we thrive to be today as a result of their witness.
Talk about, if you could, some of the urban apologetics conferences you've done, because urban apologetics is not a common thing, but you have actually done a few. I think you're coming up on your second one, urban apologetics conferences. Can you talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to get into the first guy?
Yep. So we launched last year a conference called the Truth Summit. Last year, the theme was setting the record straight. We dealt with questions like, is Christianity the white man's religion? We talked about how Christians should respond to the Hebrew Israelite movement, how Christians should approach the Kemetic community, myself, Damon Richardson, Adam Coleman. We also had a panel of guys that talked through these things, and it was pretty well attended. We were happy about how that turned out. That was the first one that we did. And now we're going to be doing another one in September of this year, and the theme is celebrating the black church. It's celebrating the legacy and securing the longevity. So, I believe that in the same way that we have an apologetic for Hebrew Israelites, in the same way we have an apologetic for Kemetic cats, we also need to develop an apologetic for the black church, because they're actively attacking the black church, and a lot of their attacks are based upon ahistorical information and misinformation about the black church. They don't really know the contributions the black church has made to black America, which is why we need to really know the history of the black church and develop an apologetic to counter their essentially fallacious arguments.
So let me try to give people context real quick, if I could help out. If somebody is hearing some of this stuff for the first time, let me try to give some context. And to those who are already familiar, let me remind you, I guess, if we could say that. Here's what it is. If you are part of majority culture in America, there's challenges and questions you've heard to your faith if you're a Christian, no doubt about that. But there's a set of questions, very pressing questions, that you most likely have not heard. For example, why do you as a black person worship a white Jesus? Why do you as a black person worship religion that was beat into your ancestors? Why do you as a black person worship a religion that promotes white supremacy? Why do you as a black person worship a God who doesn't look like you? Why do you as a black person worship a religion that your ancestors didn't follow? Why do you as a black person worship a religion that has a book central to it that was used to justify slavery? The list goes on and on and on of these kinds of questions, and it's a whole panorama of questions. And here's what we got going on in 2019. If you go on any of the Hebrew Israelite and Kemetic cats websites and stuff like that, and you go check them out and see what they're doing, they are just filled with attacks on not just the church, primarily the black church. The second a pastor falls, they put up all these videos about it. They kind of applaud it and laud it. You know what I'm saying? They're all about that kind of stuff. and it's a ever pressing matter that's a main part of their arsenal. And so, are we back on? I had two things happen at once, everybody. Two things happen at once. I had a kid situation, and at the same time I had the kid situation, I also had the internet go down. Literally both happened at once. I don't know how or why. But we're starting back up again. Sorry, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. All right, I think we're back in. Isaiah, are you back with us?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, just let's see what. Now I just got to get your. Okay, we're good. All right, let's pick right back up. Sorry, do not know what happened, guys, but I appreciate you guys for sticking around. Let everyone know we are still live. Everything is taken care of. All right, if you go to the other side of the screen slightly, Isaiah, one more time, so I can see your face. No, other way.
Now the setup looks other way. Mm-hmm. Now the setup looks different on my end than it did initially. So.
There you go. There you go. You're good. Here, I'll share my screen with you one more time, so you can see what it is, and then that should be helpful. All right. So, oh, did you want to say anything? I was trying to set the context for why studying Black church history is actually an apologetic issue when it comes to this context of apologetics. It really matters. And so I just want people to understand, this is not about division. This is not about someone's better or someone's worse. It's just not about any of that. This is about a response to an apologetic issue. And I mean, it's more than that, okay? I'm not minimizing to say that's all it is. It's not just pragmatic or anything. It's hard to say everything without saying everything. But this is very important to discuss. And if you're a believer out there, even if you don't deal with these types of issues, we have people who watch in India, for example. Hey, we get to learn about God's people together. We get to learn about the church together. That's a beautiful thing. So just kind of have that mindset, and let's roll with this, because I think you'll be encouraged and inspired tonight as we go through these folks. Are we set up, you think, properly, Isaiah?
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to stay as still as possible so my face isn't obscure, bro. It's hard though, man, because I have I'm hyperactive, so.
I got you. Well, let's start with the first man on the screen, David George. George, 1743 to 1810. So that is really early, 1743. Yep. I mean, we're talking prior, just to put it in context, everybody, prior to the War for Independence here in America. He was from the South. He was considered a loyalist, but he escaped two British lines. By the way, part of this is the only guy I'm going to do this for. I'll just tell you guys, this is the only guy I'm going to do this for because I don't have as many resources for him. The only guy that I'm going to read partially his Wikipedia entry. Partially. And he's the only one. He went down to Savannah, Georgia, and then eventually went to Nova Scotia, which at the time was actually sort of a haven for Black Calvinists, and resettled in a place called Freetown, Sierra Leone. And then he founded in South Carolina in 1775 the very first Black church in America, Silver Bluff Baptist Church. And he later on was affiliated with the current longest-standing one, which is First African Baptist Church of Savannah. And he wrote an account of his life. It's one of the most important early slave narratives. So that's kind of just setting it up. Isaiah, can you talk a little bit about David George?
Yeah,
and the churches he was affiliated with.
Yeah, so David George essentially was a man on the run. Originally enslaved in Virginia, ends up escaping, and he runs into some Creek Indians. He's essentially taken captive by the Creek Indians, and he works for a while with the Creek Indians. They kind of see him as a trophy, and then he ends up escaping the Creek Indians. Now while he's with the Creek Indians, his owner from Virginia finds him, and he goes to the Creek Indians. He offers them rum and some other things to try to purchase David George back, and the Creek Indians refuse. because they enjoyed kind of using them. You know, David George was really their shiny new toy. But David George would not be kept in bondage, so he escaped.
Yes, sir.
And eventually running into a man by the name of Goffin, who ironically was an Indian trader, a wealthy man, had a plantation, and ended up working for Goffin in Silver Bluff, South Carolina. And this was during the fervor of the First Great Awakening. You have churches springing up, and so Goffin was a slave owner. He had slaves on his plantation who were converted to Christianity, and so he allowed them to worship on his plantation. The official pastor of this sort of plantation church, his name was Palmer. But there was also another itinerant minister that was preaching regularly there at Silver Bluff. His name was George Liele. And David George was actually converted through the ministry of George Liele. George Liele would travel up and down the Virginia, Georgia, South Carolina coasts and preach to slaves. And David George was converted there, and Silver Bluff became the first black. We can't call it independent. I mean, but it was the first black church in America established actually in 1773. George Liele ultimately goes to Savannah. He establishes the first African Baptist church, which is officially constituted in 1777. But David George stays behind for a while, pastors the Silver Bluff Church, and then eventually he does follow George Liele to Savannah, and he spends some time at First African Baptist. But this is during the Revolutionary time. They were both British loyalists. David George and George Liele were both British loyalists. So the Crown they upheld their promise, and they sent groups of African Americans to Nova Scotia. David George went there, but ultimately he ended up in Sierra Leone. Where he set up kind of a colony and brought the Baptist faith to Sierra Leone, and absolutely worked to convert some of the natives and also some of the other African Americans that had traveled along there as well. So you got to give David George his props, because number one, he would not be enslaved. He was always bucking that system, and his deep faith led him to areas and territories that some of us would never even imagine going to.
Yeah, he had quite the adventurous life. I could not find a representation image for David George, and so you haven't been able to find any either. You
won't find a rendering of David George at all. His image is sort of lost to history.
That's interesting. So I don't know if you saw what I directed the graphic design artist to do is actually take the stained glass windows there in First African and kind of shape them into the silhouette of a man's body, because for everyone else that when we did these cards. These digital cards, I had some kind of representation of every person except for David George, and I thought that was the best thing we could do. So there's different figures that are inside of the silhouette that is a stained glass from First African. Now, let me ask you one question. This is unrelated, but I don't know if you know, it's actually a common Hebrew Israelite apologetic to say the first black church in America. This is the way they phrase it. I'm not saying it's accurate because it's not the first, but it's the longest standing. Anyways, they say the first black church in America had Hebrew writing on the pews, and that's proof that our people were originally the Israelites. Have you ever heard this?
I have, and the first black, the only way that they can say that is by essentially being ignorant of history.
Explain why that's not a good argument for them, as far as
because
the Hebrew pew writing. I've seen the pictures.
Right. Well, because they're referring to the pews at First African, but that wasn't the first black church that was established in America. It was Silver Bluff.
Well, let's forgive that historical mistake. Is it still a good argument to say, look, one of the oldest black churches in America has Hebrew writing scrawled on the side of the pews?
No, I mean, absolutely not. I mean, the Africans who were converted, they were very aware of the Exodus narratives. They identified with the Exodus narratives heavily. So, when we see identification of the African Americans to the Israelites, it's not because they were appropriating that identity. It's because they identified with the plight of the Israelites of the Bible.
At an existential, spiritual level. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to get some strong magnification, or go in there with someone who is able to really decide, because it almost doesn't even look like Hebrew. The pictures I've seen, it's almost indecipherable as Hebrew. I'd like to get somebody who has an ability to really kind of make out the letters and see what's actually even said in there. But to have Hebrew or Greek in any place scrolled in a church is actually not outlandish. There's churches that do that even today because of the identification with the original languages of the Bible as well. So I think that's interesting, though. That is an argument that you actually hear again and again that they bring up.
Yeah. I mean, it's a paper thin argument. There's nothing to it, and it's ultimately ahistorical. And they might have a meme, but as we know, they have tons of memes that are that are essentially false and convey false history.
Dang, Isaiah. No, that's true. Since you kind of went right into David George, or I'm sorry, you kind of went right from David George when we were talking to George Liele. And so I have both their pictures up side by side. Indeed, the ministry and life of both men is intertwined. But, it's significant that it's hard enough to plant a church. So I'm kind of wrapping up David George. I could go on to George Liele here, unless you got something else. It's hard enough to plant a church. Lord knows. It's hard to pastor or be even on any kind of volunteer staff or whatever you want to call. I say staff in the sense of people, not paid people, but it's hard to do that. It's very difficult. Imagine being persecuted. Imagine being a man on the run planting a church. Do you see what I'm saying? And throughout David George's life, ladies and gentlemen, he actually was involved with the founding of 7 different congregations. And we are talking literally all over God's green earth. If he was not a man on the run, who is, a former slave and all that, this would be impressive no matter what. This is amazing. This is a sort of a legendary church planter when you really look at it. And not only that, he was an early promoter of missions. And so this is someone that should be commended and just kind of an inspiration to us all when we think about the difficulty of planting churches and the importance of it as well. And I look forward to seeing what he really looks like when I get to heaven.
Yeah, he'll be there.
Yes, indeed. All right, now let's go to George Liele, who you mentioned. And I do have an artistic rendition of George Liele. But I love the way you do this. Like, for example, that was so picturesque. You said he was a man on the run. That's a subtitle for a biography right there. David George, a man on the run. So George Liele, I'll let you walk him in, and then I'll tack on to that, Isaiah.
Yeah, so if you are a Christian and you took a church history course and they made you think that Adoram and Ann Judson were the first American missionaries abroad, or William Cary, they lied to you. Well, and maybe they didn't do it.
Let's just say, can we say they're wrong? Can we just say they're wrong?
Right.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know about George Liele until I started studying this stuff, and I would have told someone. I want to be more charitable. I would have told someone 5 years ago. Maybe I would have said Adoram Judson. I would have said another name as far as the first. Like American, I would have said the same thing 5 or 6 years ago. You know what I'm saying? But go ahead.
Yeah. So let me be more charitable. I don't want to say they lied to you. They just they just maybe aren't informed about the history. This man George Liele, just an amazing story. Of course, born into slavery in Virginia, ultimately becomes the property of a man named Henry Sharp in Georgia. Henry Sharp is a deacon of the church called the Big Buckhead Baptist Church.
Wait, hold up.
Yeah.
I didn't know this about him. The church is called Big Buckhead?
Yeah, Big Buckhead. I think it's Big Buckhead Creek, if I'm not
I'm
not
sorry,
mistaken.
man. I'm sorry. I know it's a reference to, I guess, a deer, but it just sounds funny. Big Buckhead. I'm sorry, it just sounds funny.
Well, in Atlanta, the most affluent neighborhood in Atlanta is Buckhead.
I did not know that.
Yeah, man.
All right, well, I'm listening to you. Well, you're the man.
Yeah, so the pastor there at the Buckhead Baptist Church is a man by the name of Matthew Moore, and Henry Sharp, who owned George Liele, was a deacon there at the church, and that's where George Liele was converted, and almost immediately after he was converted, he began ministering to the other slaves, and it became apparent, it became evident that he had an unusual and unique call on his life to preach the gospel and to teach God's word. And so they licensed him, and he became the first black person licensed in America. I was going to say Black Baptist, but no, he's actually the first. No, actually, yeah, the first Black Baptist licensed in America. And shortly after that, he begins to, minister all around the coast of Georgia and South Carolina, and he actually becomes pretty well known and pretty prominent as a preacher. And he would preach to both, free and slave, black and white. And ultimately, he ends up, like I said, at the Silver Bluff Church in South Carolina. And then from there, now you have to understand, he, like David George, was a British loyalist as well. Henry Sharp, his former owner, was a British loyalist as well. Henry Sharp ultimately sets George Liele free because he realizes that, George can't be enslaved and, be free to preach the gospel. One of those two things had to give, so he's ultimately freed. But ultimately, as a British loyalist, George Liele eventually goes to Savannah. Savannah was a stronghold for the crown, and the first African Baptist church was established, and he becomes the first pastor of the first African Baptist church. But as we know, the crown didn't ultimately win the Revolutionary War. And so a lot of the British loyalists, both black and white, they had to find something else to do. So George Liele ultimately goes to Jamaica. And while he's in Jamaica, he's not just, sipping pina coladas in the sun. The dude is working hard for the gospel. He establishes numerous Baptist churches. He is actually supported financially because of the work that he does in Jamaica. He essentially brings the gospel and the Baptist faith out to Jamaica as a missionary. So, he precedes Adoniram Judson. He precedes William Cary. And even in Jamaica today, George Liele is a very well-known figure and missionary. George Liele is absolutely a beast.
So George Liele, to kind of reiterate some of what we went over with him. So he's born on a Virginia plantation and was later freed. As far, just like Isaiah mentioned, he was converted at 23 years old. And then 1 year before the War for Independence began, 1 year before America's Declaration of Independence, 1776, in 1775, he became the first black person, like you mentioned, ordained as a pastor. And then he was one of the first black traveling evangelists, maybe the first as far as that goes, which is, again, think about doing traveling evangelism in 2019. Now rewind back and think about the difficulties. You've heard of the circuit riders. I mean, imagine doing traveling evangelism in the United States back then. And eventually in 1782, he left for Jamaica, and he was the first American missionary. This is 30 years before, I always mess up his name, but Judson. The first name sometimes messes me up. The point of saying this, everyone, is not to take away from Judson. That's not the point. God's missionaries are God's missionaries, and they go where God has them, and we laud their obedience and courage and bravery and all of that stuff. We're just saying, isn't it a beautiful, amazing thing that despite the hardships that a black person would face in America, that the first missionary out of America was actually a black person? That is astounding. That is amazing. And this is, again, 30 years before Judson. And wouldn't it be a great part of church history if that was taught? And it was intertwined in there together, and stuff like this was known. It'd be a beautiful testimony to what God has done. And I hope over time things like this do get corrected in sort of the larger mainstream Christianity. And more you hear about George Liele. And just like Judson, it's hard to say household name because how many of us evangelicals know church history, but within sort of that world, George Liele is considered a standard figure in early pioneer missions because he was. So all we're doing is recognizing it. Now, he eventually died in Jamaica, and it's estimated by many, it's difficult to track these things down, that George Liele, by the end of his life, which he died in 1820, probably baptized about 500 people personally. That's the figure I got when I studied this, and it's just absolutely amazing. And it's like, this is someone we should know about. This is a good role model for your children. You know what I'm saying? But this George Liele, do you have notes in front of you, Isaiah? Are you doing this all top of your head?
Yeah, man. Yep. You
don't have any notes in front of you?
I got my phone.
Oh man, dude, you're something else, man. For real. I'm real glad you came on today. Well. There's more to say about Liele, but let us go to the next man in our series here, John Stewart. This is the original John Stewart, the better John Stewart. And I found what I thought was a pretty cool painting rendition of John Stewart, where he's doing what he became well known for, which is preaching to Native Americans. Do you want to start off, Stewart? Or would you rather I?
Yeah, go ahead. You start him off.
All right. I got some stuff. So born in 1786. And remember, again, the 6 folks we're doing today, everybody, they're evangelists and missionaries. And so that's kind of the grouping here together. And I hope you've seen that theme. And I hope that at the end of the show, it encourages you to give to modern missions. Make sure that you're going or sending. Born in 1786, and he was the first Methodist missionary to the Wyandottes of Ohio. Now, I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio, and there's a place called Wyandotte Lake, and it's named after that. Now it's actually a theme park, but he was the first missionary to the Wyandotte Native Americans of Ohio. He was born in Virginia to free parents. They were, mixed ancestry, and then, he was traveling, and a gang brutally beat and robbed him. And this created some problems, and he had some problems in his life. So before he really answered God's call in his life, he really got into heavy drinking, and he became suicidal. John Stewart was suicidal. And instead of taking his own life, he was converted. It's quite a miraculous conversion story, actually. And then he established the first Methodist mission in the United States. So, again, this is just amazing pioneer work. The first Methodist mission in the United States of America, boom, established by John Stewart, a free black man in the late 18th and early 19th century. Think about that. And upon his effective work, the Methodist larger body began an official Wyandotte mission in 1819 based upon what he had done. And according to what I've been able to track down, I think this is cool too. His very last words recorded are, "Be faithful." That's John Stewart's last words. And again, I kind of got a little picture representation of him there ostensibly preaching to the Wyandotte Native Americans there in Ohio. Brother Isaiah, Pastor Isaiah.
Yeah, John Stewart is he's an interesting guy, and he's a problem for my cessationist friends.
Uh-oh.
Because
why is he a problem for your cessationist friends?
Well, so John Stewart, according to John Stewart, he says that he heard a male and female voice, okay, that compelled him to travel, to go. And that's how he came upon the Wyandotte Indians, as a result of this voice that he hears, this male and female voice. And ultimately, that's how he ends up with the Wyandotte Indians. And of course, when he gets there, he doesn't speak their language. All right, they don't speak his language. These Indians aren't speaking English,
right.
But the Indians just so happen to have an African American servant by the name of Pointer, and Pointer is the one that essentially serves as the translator between Stewart and the Wyandotte Indians. And man, this dude is man, people are getting saved. These Indians are getting saved as he's explaining the gospel through Pointer. And so initially what happens is when Stewart was initially a Baptist, he becomes a Methodist as a result of the revival fervor. And when it's discovered that he's actually engaged in this activity, you would think that the initial reaction would be joy and excitement that the Indians are being converted, but initially they're angry.
Can I read a little bit about? I got a paragraph here in a book called Free Indeed.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And in here, Heroes of Black History. I just want to read the little section because I know what you're talking about here. This is page 66 of this book. I recommend this book, by the way, everybody. No book is perfect, but this is a good book. I'm glad it exists. And in Free Indeed, they have this section here about Stewart and Pointer, and I'm just going to read these two paragraphs. Stewart met the Indian agent, William Walker, the white government representative responsible for the care of the reservation. Walker, in turn, introduced Stewart to Jonathan Pointer, another black man who knew the Wyandotte language. Pointer had little interest in religion and was unenthusiastic about Stewart's plans. He told the would-be missionary bluntly that it was, quote, folly for him to preach to the Indians. Well-educated white men had preached without effect to the Indians, Pointer said, so how could Stewart, a poor black man, hope to succeed? And again, you see the world's vision and view there, right? Not God's. Continuing on. Even when he agreed to interpret, Pointer would interject comments in its translation, such as, this is a quote now, that Pointer would do while he was translating. Imagine having a translator hostile to your aims. Listen to this. So he says, I do not know whether it is so or not, nor do I care. All I care about is to interpret faithfully what he says to you. You must not think that I care whether you believe it or not. So he had a interpreter who was not helpful to his aims. It's just an amazing story, and you could see the world's logic. Hey, these rich white, they done it, and they haven't had any success. Why are you going to have success? And so that's kind of where you were going with that. Go ahead, though.
Yeah, well, ultimately he does have success. He has a lot of success. They begin to convert to Christianity, and when his work is discovered, the pushback comes because he's not licensed. Mm-hmm. And so they're upset because he's doing this gospel work without a license. But ultimately, they're unable to deny, the power of the gospel that's coming out of his mouth and its effectiveness in saving this tribe. And they eventually license him. And as you said, the first Methodist, missionary society was established as a result of Stewart.
Let me read about one meeting that is recorded between Stewart and the Wyandottes. The Wyandottes generally listened to Stewart, and many expressed an interest in following Christianity. but there were still no public conversions. Only a handful seemed to embrace Christ, and then only hesitantly. Then, on a Wednesday in February 1817, about 3 months after he had started working with the tribe, Stewart preached on the final judgment. There was pronounced restlessness among the congregation. The missionary held a prayer meeting later that day and exhorted the Indians to repent and trust in Christ. Suddenly, some began to fall to the ground and cry out for mercy. One 60-year-old woman rose up from prayer and declared, quote, that God, for Jesus' sake, had forgiven all her sins, end quote. And she began to urge the truth of Stewart's words to the crowds. Some of the Wyandots watching these actions became afraid and said that the convicted were dying or crazy. Stewart said, quote, they are not dying, neither are they insane, as you suppose, though some of them, I trust, are dying to sin and struggling into a life of righteousness, peace, and joy in the Holy Ghost, end quote. And then he returns later on to them and has further success in the Lord, which is a beautiful thing. And so this is powerful. I mean, this is powerful stuff.
Yes, sir.
So I like that picture too. That's a pretty cool picture. I don't know how historically accurate it is, but it definitely looks cool. All right, so on to the next entry here. This is someone who's a little more well known as far as me being able to poke around the internet and see. It is Lott, Cary. Lott, Cary. And, you know, I found his name spelled different ways. I don't actually know if it's C-A-R-Y or C-A-R-E-Y. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, no, you'll find that. I mean, even George Liele's name, you'll find it spelled differently. You'll find it L-I-E-L-E. You'll find it L-I-S-L-E. Sometimes you'll even see him referred to as George Sharp.
Wow! I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, because he was owned by Henry Sharp. So this is as a result of slavery, man, and you know, and of, you know, our names and identities being altered and changed and adapted and things of that nature. So yeah.
This is some people know about William Cary, missionary to India in 1794, sometimes called the father of modern missions. But now we're going to learn about Lott Cary, a former slave. Do you want to kick him off? You want to begin it?
Well, you know, for those that think that, you know, Pan-Africanism is alien to Christianity.
Real quick, could you define Pan-Africanism loosely?
Yeah, so Pan-Africanism essentially is a view that
Well, the idea that to be able to have sort of the right to self-determination, you know, to have some kind of form of sovereign, independent government, as far as peoples of African descent who are in the Western Hemisphere, one of the
I have to put you on hold for just a second, Vocab. All right.
Okay. One of the best things that can be done for peoples of African descent in the Western Hemisphere is to unite in some way with African peoples, and often to physically return there. And so it looks like he's got to take care of something. So let me go ahead and put myself on here. Let me make Lott Cary. I'm gonna get him here big in the screen. All right, nice. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, playing with this stuff live. But you know why he's doing that? This is a perfect time for me to give a shout out to the super chatters, because it looks like we've got freestyle number 1 unlocked. I did not forget about you guys. And number 1, when we had that little blackout, I want to give you guys much love. Most of you guys stuck around and just talked to each other for a minute. That is I'm just so encouraged by you guys. But again, shout out to Top Student, shout out to Lily R, shout out to Nate, shout out to Radical Love, shout out to Roxby, boom, heavy hitter. Shout out to Brian Weinberg. What's up, man? I see you said you're out there on the road. And shout out to Nate for bringing on that final home stretch. So great people. And we've also got my man MJ Jackson. MJ, you know that show we did on Kemet? that show has already got a lot of attention, MJ. So that's a good thing. I'm glad about that. But much love to you guys, and it's very, very good to have you up in here. And don't think that I forgot about you. All right, so let me refresh here. Looks like Isaiah is back, and while he's getting set up there, let me say a little bit something about Lott, Cary, and then I'll bring you up in here. Lott, Cary, 1780 to 1828. He was instrumental in the founding of Liberia, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means in a second here. He was born in slavery in Virginia, and he purchased his family's freedom at the age of 33. He helped found the African Missionary Society. Then he migrated to Liberia in 1821, and he is kind of in the early pioneer missions as well, just like David George that we talked about. And he established Liberia's first church, according to my understanding. He founded schools there as well and helped the young colony as a military organizer and then as its governor. So Lott, Cary was somebody who was a political leader as well, but with a gospel-centered view. So beautiful stuff there. Very good to see. So I'm flipping back over here to making sure I got you in here. All right, go ahead. I'm going to get your picture on the screen, but your voice can be heard, Pastor Isaiah. Lott, Cary.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, y'all. I'm sorry. I have stuff going on in my house that
we all do.
That needed my attention. All right. Okay, so we're talking about Lott, Cary, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So Lott is an interesting guy. Lott, of course, was born into slavery. Ultimately, he ends up being contracted to work in Richmond, and he starts out his work. I forget exactly what he did while he was in Richmond, but he started out as just a regular sort of low-level worker, and eventually, because of his work ethic and skill, he becomes a supervisor, and ultimately he earns enough money to buy his own freedom, but not his own freedom, but he also buys the freedom of his family, right? His whole family. Mm-hmm. Yep, his whole family,
which is amazing.
Exactly. And so during this time, right? So this is after the Revolutionary War, and so you have abolitionists that want the slaves to be free, and they see the migration of slaves to Liberia, or former slaves to Liberia, as a positive thing. You have slave owners that there's all these free blacks running around, so they have an interest in seeing them leave to Africa as well. And you have to imagine that at this time, a lot of the African Americans were second generation Americans.
Yeah. He talks about his grandmother actually was instrumental in teaching him about Christianity.
Right. So a lot of them didn't want to go back to Liberia, but Lott, Cary goes back to Liberia by choice. As a matter of fact, he goes back because he says he's an African. He identifies with Africa so much that he decides that he's going to pick up and go. And Vocab, I don't know how much you read about his trials once he got there, but there were natives. And the natives there, they didn't take too kindly to these ships arriving with these American colonists, black American colonists coming into their territory. And so Lott, Cary had to spend a lot of time not just sharing the gospel and not just seeing after his family and not just helping to establish a civilization, but he also had to spend a lot of time in combat with those that didn't want to see the black people from America flourish there. Right. But ultimately,
can I read one little paragraph on that? Sure. Just as a quick one. Sure. The work was hard and often unrelenting. This is from Free Indeed again. I'm reading here from page 76. During the rough early days, Cary confronted one group of discouraged settlers and talked them out of talked them out of returning to Sierra Leone. Some of the native tribes resented the establishing of the colony near their lands. That's in reference to Liberia. And they harried it with raids. Cary compared the battles in building Liberia to those of Nehemiah and the children of Israel in rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, even to the point of holding weapons close at hand as they worked. This is a different type of missionary activity, right? Yet he said, "There never has been an hour or a minute, no, not even when the bullets were flying around my head, when I could wish myself again in America." That's some resolute determination right there.
Yep. And he actually ultimately dies as a result of an injury he sustains as a result of these weapons. And so this man was committed to the gospel. He establishes, the Providence Baptist Church, which later becomes the capital, Monrovia, right? He is made a governor of Liberia. And as a Christian, he is committed to Christ, but he's also committed to his African heritage, even to the point of death. So Lott Cary is that dude. And a lot of the National Baptist Convention was established as a result of a desire to continue the work of Lott Cary and continue missions in Africa. So
you mentioned his death. Let me read the last paragraph on that. Cary, this is page 78. Trouble broke out again when one of the native tribes, and trouble broke out again with one of the native tribes and with a slave trader. Cary began organizing the defense of the colony. So let me just stop. I'm going to read the rest of this. But to the Kemets who want to attack black Christianity, this man is literally defending Liberia with his life. This is a Christian man. These are the principles that drove him. It wasn't ancient Kemetic. This wasn't his masters sending him on a mission, anything like that. This is a gospel drive and a gospel call that he had, and he goes and he's defending while preaching. I mean, this is phenomenal stuff, and this needs to be known and heard. Cary began organizing the defense of the colony. He and several other colonists were preparing cartridges on November 8th, 1828, when someone knocked a candle over into the gunpowder. The ensuing explosion fatally injured 8 people. Among them was Cary, who died 2 days later. And so, let me read one last thing here. This is cool. This is where there's a native in Sierra Leone who heard a snippet of the gospel, and he wanted to hear more about this. This man traveled 80 miles to speak with Cary. Imagine that. Imagine that. And this person was converted. Cary baptized him and gave him his first communion. And listen to this. This is the halting English that was recorded, in which this new convert gave his testimony here. "All the time my heart trouble me, all day. All night me can't sleep. By and by my heart grow too big. Me fall down this time. Now me can pray. Me say, Lord, have mercy. Then light come in my heart. Make me glad. Make me light. Make me love the Son of God. Make me love everybody." That is a powerful testimony.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Anything else about Cary? I mean, there's a lot to say. It looks like he's got a little part there. You see, he's got a little part, don't he?
Yeah. Cary was a classic man, like Jadena. You know what I
mean? You had to go there, didn't you? You had to. Yeah, no, when I saw him, I was like, all right, with the little part.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's ever going to beat Frederick Douglass's Maine, but that part's pretty nice.
Yeah, man. Yeah, but we're going to see, as we talk about Samuel Morris, we're actually going to see the fruit of Cary's work. Because you have Samuel Morris, which is also another remarkable story. So, I don't want to.
All right, well, let's go then. You are a natural, man. You just segue right in here. Maybe you should be a preacher or something.
Yeah, hey.
Try it out. All right, so here is Samuel Morris, ladies and gentlemen. And the picture, actually, that I've got of him is actually from a statue. It's a pretty cool-looking statue. And Samuel Morris is somebody who I've taught my kids a lot about because he was younger, man. And here's actually a book I have on Moody Press called Samuel Morris, Believing in God's Power. and it's a guessing book. This is a pretty cool book. What it does is it goes through his life and it talks about him, and then what the kids have to do is they have to guess, but they've got the information. They have to know the right answer, and it goes through that way through the whole book. So it's a pretty cool little miniature biography of Samuel Morris, and there he is with basically some crazy sailors, which is a key part of his story. So on to Samuel Morris, Brother Isaiah.
Yeah, man. So this dude was a prince. He was a Liberian prince.
Mm-hmm. So this is a legitimate, actual prince because my understanding, by and large, and this makes sense if you think about their station in society, royalty or aristocratic or the aristocracy, whatever kind of class, members of the monarchy, were less likely to go into slavery. You know what I'm saying? You can kind of see it. But Samuel Morris was an actual African prince, and the story begins off pretty tragic, actually. But go ahead.
Yeah, so he's ultimately captured by a rival tribe, and I forget the name of the
they were a stronger tribe than they were, and they did these raids, and at one point they got him, and they basically did a continuing ransom thing. Samuel Morris was only 14 when this happened.
Yep. Ultimately, and Vocab, you might need to remind me, how does he escape?
Yeah, he does escape.
He escaped.
There's like some battles and stuff, and in the confusion he managed. But here's the thing, though: it's done through visions of Jesus. He has visions of Jesus that like tell him, I forget the exact details, but tell him kind of when to run and where to go, and he needs to leave. Like, it's pretty astounding when he relates his story later on.
Yes.
But it's visions of Jesus that are driving him outward.
Right. And ultimately he stumbles upon a plantation, and the slaves and the people at this plantation have been Christianized. They're Christians, and he hears about Christ.
He's talking about he's talking about on the west coast of Africa, everybody.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. He hears about Christ from a girl there. I think he's about 14 at this time, and he is he's amazed at the message of the gospel, so much so that he inquires about where she heard this message from, and he's told about a man named Stephen Merritt, I believe is his name, Stephen Merritt, and Samuel Morris, who I think his African name was it Kobo or
Kaboo. Have you heard it pronounced? I've heard it. I don't know how to pronounce it, but Kaboo is what it seems like.
Yeah, Kaboo.
Yeah, but Prince Kaboo. His African name. When he gets baptized, he gets a sort of a Christianized name, but
correct. So he hears about this man named Stephen Merritt, and he hears about Stephen Merritt essentially being the one that shared the message of the gospel with the person that he heard the gospel from, and he's compelled to go to New York, where Stephen Merritt is, to visit Stephen Merritt, and ultimately that's what he does. He goes from the plantation in West Africa to New York, meets Stephen Merritt, and I think, if I remember correctly, when Stephen Merritt meets Samuel Morris literally is sharing the gospel so fervently that I think 20 people are converted. He's saying Samuel Morris, so enthusiastic about the gospel that I think 20 people are converted, and this Merritt character sees Samuel Morris, and he sees this gospel zeal, and so he's like, man, this kid, he's on fire for Christ. We need to get him, educated. And so money is raised ultimately for him to attend Taylor University in I think at the time it was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I don't think it's there anymore. And so Fort Wayne, Taylor University. And to this day, he is highly venerated.
Right.
I think there even you said there are statues to his honor because of all that he endured, and he continued at Taylor to be a loud and vociferous gospel witness, and to share his faith in spite of the trials from which he came.
Yeah, so let's backtrack a little bit. I want people to hear a little bit out of his journey. So he heard about the Holy Spirit from Miss Muncie there, and he says to Miss Muncie, "Where did you learn about the Holy Spirit?" And she says, "Stephen Merritt." And Samuel Morris says, "Where is he?" And she says, "New York." And he says, "Very well, I will go to see him."
Yeah, right.
And just like it's that simple, right? When he arrived back in Monrovia and told Miss Knowles of his decision to go to New York, she objected. This is from the children's book, actually, but it's good. I've got the official sources, but I actually like the way this reads. "But Sammy, what of your job? What of helping the missionaries? And what of your singing and your English lessons?" Sammy only answered, listen to this, "We have a saying, you cannot hold on to two cows' tails at once." I like that. And then he just goes down. Listen to this. "Oh, Father, help me. Let there be a ship in the harbor." And then he goes to the seashore and just prays to God to get to New York. And he sees a passing sailor. He says, "Hey, where's the ship headed?" And, of course, the sailor says, "Going to New York." And so he goes, and he's like, "Hey, my father told me that you would take me to New York to see Stephen Merritt." And the captain says, "Where's your father?" And he says, "In heaven."
Yeah, and they're initially reluctant.
Yeah, they don't want
him on the ship.
They don't want to take him.
Right.
Listen, he says, "This ship doesn't carry passengers. You must be crazy." And so he just sits in the same spot, doesn't eat for 2 days, keeps on begging the guy to take him, and he says, "I'm not going to take you." And it's a long story, but eventually, he gets taken. They eventually take him to New York. And on this situation, when he's on this boat, these are not nice people. These are not good people. They kind of kicked him around. They beat him.
He's abused there.
Yeah, he's abused. But over time, they kind of see his worth, and he basically leads kind of like miniature revivals on this crazy ship on the way there. It's just a wild. It's so wild. It almost seems unbelievable what God did in this young guy's life. I mean, he's like a teenager. It's just absolutely unbelievable. He died very young. We're going to see here in a second. But I mean, that's why Samuel Morris. In fact, there's a Samuel Morris cartoon. If you guys ever seen the Voice for the Martyrs series, they're animated cartoons, and they're called, I think, part of the Torchlighters series. Voice for the Martyrs sells them. Samuel Morris has his own little cartoon, so you can get an animated version of his life. Hey, shout out to Alex Medina in the super chat. Says, "This live broadcast has been very informative and encouraging. God bless." Well, that's literally exactly what we're hoping for, Alex. So I'm glad to hear that. Anything else for Samuel Morris? I mean, I have a couple other things I could say, but anything else for Samuel Morris on your end?
Not a dude was the truth. This is what happens when a prince meets the Prince of Peace.
Amen, amen. And everywhere he went, he was sort of discounted, but the sort of pure power of his faith and really the power of answered prayers that he got led to revival basically everywhere he went in his young life. And so to recap some of this, by the way, I looked up his people. His people were called the Crew. KRU, that's his people, the Crew. And this very first night in the U.S., almost 20 people were saved at this prayer meeting, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
But later on, he while he was attending Taylor University, as Pastor Isaiah mentioned, in Indiana, he fell ill and he actually died. He died at 20 years old. But in this short little life, he has inspired countless people to volunteer for missions. And so it's really just a amazing story, the life of Prince Kaboo or Samuel Morris. I think we've got, last but not least, Montrose Waite, the man who couldn't wait.
Yeah.
So I like his hat there, by the way.
Yeah, hat is dope.
Obviously, I got an entry here for him. This is a pretty cool book, Profiles of African American Missionaries. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to read some of it. And then Pastor Isaiah, just feel free to interject commentary anytime you'd like to kind of give some context as you would like. This looks like a lot to read. Well,
admittedly, I'm not as familiar with Waite as I am with some of the others.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let me read a little bit about him. Montrose Waite received the call to be missionary at age 17 in Jamaica, where he was born. A missionary from Jamaica had gone to England to be trained for missionary work in Africa. While home on furlough, he said to me by the Holy Spirit, so this is Montrose Waite recounting this, that I would be a bearer of the gospel to some place where there was a need, end quote. Montrose grew up in a Christian, poor family with 11 children. And I know we got a Canadian Jamaican in the house, D. New. So this is your patron saint right now, D. New. Just kidding. Life was not easy. His 5 older brothers went abroad, and he stayed to care for the younger ones and to help his aging parents. When the war in Europe broke out in 1914, his father thought he should enlist in a volunteer company organized in Jamaica. His father was an evangelist, and their church was associated with the CNMA, that's Christian Missionary Alliance, which had its headquarters in New York. A white American friend of their pastor helped arrange for him to go to America. That American provided $50 needed by each passenger landing in America. And this is Montrose Waite. I made up my mind that I must succeed in the U.S. I had a cabin mate from Jamaica to New York. I told him that my desire was to enter the ministry. He thought I would change my mind after I started making money. In 1916, after arriving in New York City, Montrose Waite made his way to New Haven and stayed with his brother and began working for the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. Montrose then had to use his savings for he had an operation, it looks like, and had to work an extra year to replace the funds. A friend came from Billy Sunday's crusade in Boston, having become a Christian there. Let's say, go ahead.
No. You just mentioned the name Billy Sunday, so I kind of.
He's making you laugh already?
Yeah.
Oh, man, where'd my picture of Montrose Waite go? I had to bring my picture back up. Somehow my picture disappeared from Montrose Waite. I'll get it back up here in a second, guys. Montrose, the two took off for Nyack together in 1917. Montrose requested and was allowed to work part-time and was protected from the flu, which killed a number of people that winter. God kept providing funds as needed for food, clothes. Now look, as we've read all these folks tonight, I hope one thing that you guys get out of this is when you're obedient to God's call in your life, He will provide. Do you see that in the story after story with these folks? And we're just skimming the surface, you know what I mean? We're not going all the way down deep, but there's some amazing faith in these individuals, but God provides every time. Just want to draw that out. Montrose graduated in 1920 when the Marcus Garvey movement had started. The colonial powers, especially Britain and France, were alarmed over this man's program because their African subjects had heard about Garvey and wanted to welcome him to Africa. These colonial powers decided that no black Americans would be permitted to land anywhere in Africa. Montrose had applied to go to Africa and had been accepted. The CNMA was the only white society of the evangelical groups who had decided to use black missionaries. This was chiefly because black churches contributed to their missionary fund. While waiting to hear from the CNMA, Montrose proceeded to apply for his passport. He was still a subject of Great Britain and was therefore entitled to one. The passport came. He took it with him to the annual CNMA convention and showed it to Dr. R.H. Glover, the Foreign Secretary. By the way, reading that little paragraph, I don't know if you guys are catching it, but notice how politics and racism are playing a role in actually, in many cases, stunting missions growth. I don't know if you guys caught the implications there. That's bad news. That's bad news. It's funny because sometimes people are like, they wanted to get these Africans and these black folks Christians at all costs. Not really all so much. Nope. Not really all so much. He took it with him to the annual CNMA convention and showed it to the Foreign Secretary. He took the passport to validate it. Montrose later went to his New York office to find out when he would be going to Africa. There were others waiting to be sent as well. They had a work established in Sierra Leone for 25 years. But the white missionaries on the field did not want black co-workers, even though they were missionaries to black people. They did not want black co-workers as they did missions work in Africa to black people.
Yep.
Explain this to me, everyone. Explain this to me. Reverend Collette approached the CNMA board on his behalf without results, so he offered to help Montrose Waite with a missionary preaching position in the South with a church whose members were illiterate. So he's like in a holding pattern here. Montrose still gladly went, stopping back in Philadelphia for 2 weeks and leaving at night to arrive in the daylight. In North Carolina, there were about 10 people at his first Wednesday night prayer meeting. Montrose was excited and embarked on visiting and preaching across the South and North, where he was invited by pastors and friends. During these travels, he met Ella Hamilton, who had also been called to missions. She decided to go to Nyack for training, and he continued to preach and raise his support. This was 7 years after his call to missions in 1916. His baggage was 2 foot lockers, wooden cases weighing about 80 pounds each, and a canvas bag containing a camp bed on which he slept for several years in the field. At last, after spending 32 days traveling, he landed in Sierra Leone in 1923. The C&M had missionaries in 2 of the tribes, Timni and Karanko. There were at least 11 different dialects in Sierra Leone. Each dialect was essentially a different foreign language. The capital city was Freetown, the city where the British were urged to send those from Canada who had come up from America through the Underground Railroad. After they arrived, the British were urged to send a missionary to them. Missionaries traveled on foot and canoe to the interior tribal people. This is pioneer work, ladies and gentlemen. They found Anglican Bishop Taylor Smith and also English Methodist and United Brethren from America active in Sierra Leone. It was mandatory that each missionary study to get a working knowledge of the tribal language within 1 year. Montrose went with another veteran missionary, Mr. David Rupp, to the Sumbaya tribe. Now, again, being a missionary is hard enough, but imagine encountering all this racism and stuff along the way. But nonetheless, by God's grace, these men did it. The people practiced ancestor worship. These ancestors were called upon to help oppose evil spirits. After a missionary learned the Minke language which they spoke, they preached and taught them. They became their doctor, lawyer, as well as father, who had money to lend and give to those who needed help. They were built a hut by various tribes, so a place to live now. Much of the preparations for their home took place with about 20 men carrying over 40 miles by foot supplies of roofing and pieces of a former missionary home they dismantled. Nearby they obtained mud, sand, stones, and hard wood and ordered in cement for the floors. Sounds simple, but plastic mud was needed and had to be obtained from anthills which were dug 10 feet deep and 100 feet in circumference at the bottom. This they carried up to the mountain. Before the house was completed, Ella became very ill and had to be carried in a hammock 38 miles to the train by Marcus and by the same 20 men. His evangelistic work was not neglected. He continued Wednesday and Sunday services during its preparation and was able to complete the home one day before the rainy season. And there's more here to read. I don't want to read too much, but I'm kind of giving you, with the last guide that we're doing, kind of some of the nitty-gritty. So I do want to read this last part of this book. He also started a school with 2 leading Muslim men, a leader in their superstition, as well as one of his servant boys. They all became believers. You hear that? One white missionary with only an 8th grade education wanted to curtail this English school because they were taught in English. The missionary told him he didn't think it was wise to educate the African because you couldn't control him after he got an education. As a result, they didn't have the opportunity of reading the Bible. However, Musukaba, who had been the leader of superstition, became a great witness. Now, we just got to stop there. Like, I need some comment. You heard that last part I just read, right? So first of all, Montrose Waite is more educated than his white missionary friend. You see what I'm saying? He is educating the Africans in English. The missionary, who has a lower level of education than Montrose Waite, says, don't educate the Africans because once they have an education, they're harder to control. As if that's the job of a missionary, by the way. But, I mean, do you see? Isaiah, got some commentary on this.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is actually, this is nothing new. This duplicity and this doublespeak is actually nothing new because, you know, if you go to the Museum of the Bible right now in Washington, D.C., you'll see a document there called the Slave Bible. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a Bible that has, you know, I think 50% of the Old Testament missing and upwards to 70% of the New Testament missing. Essentially what it does is it omits the liberationist passages that the slaves could potentially see and really wrap their minds around and use for their own, you know, liberation and struggle for freedom. So, you know, long before Montrose Waite arrived in Liberia for missions, you had, you know, double standards and really asinine approaches to Christianizing the slaves. Racism has been prevalent, and it was only heightened as Europe was colonizing Africa. Ultimately, this is a financial transaction, and missionaries are just there to make that go a little bit smoother. And so, it doesn't surprise me, because from the very beginning of sort of European missions to Africa, you've seen this type of irony and essentially hypocrisy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that God's work would be impeded by racism in this way. Let me read the little entry here, so just kind of wrap up him. 1891 to 1978, born in Jamaica, leader in building support in and for the African American Church for Missions, is educated in Nyack, New York, suffered many setbacks to go to Africa because of bigotry, which we talked about, sailed in 1923 to Sierra Leone, founded the Afro-American Missionary Crusade in 1847. Oh, that date's wrong. I'm sorry. I got to look up the right date. That is not. I think it's might be 1947. That's not the right date. Served with his wife and 7 children in Liberia as field director of the AAMC. Continued as a missionary until 1962. And again, I like his hat.
Yeah, his hat's dope.
No doubt. Well, so those are the 6 folks. I mean, what about sort of general commentary about some of this? Like, that was a good, helpful commentary you gave. Let's draw some apologetic lessons from this. I mean, we kind of been going along them, but I kind of reel it all back, if we could, Pastor Isaiah.
Yeah, number one, I would say. Yeah, so number one, I would say that if anyone claims that the slaves were by and large forced into Christianity, this conversation should help you to prove them wrong. If they say that and they don't know about the first and second Great Awakening, and they aren't familiar with stories like George Lyle's and David George's. David George was converted as a result of a black man, and a black man preaching the gospel to him, which was George Lyle. These conversations like this help to dispel these false claims about slaves being forced into this, when in all actuality, in the first Great Awakening, slaves were converted right alongside their owners in a lot of cases. And actually, let me recommend a really good resource. It's a book called God Struck Me Dead, and it's actually slaves, where the slaves are recounting their conversion experience. And so, you hear from the lips of slaves how they became Christians. And they're not saying, oh, man, you see look, that's an old clip, bro. I hate that.
No, it's not. It's not on the screen. It's not on the screen.
Oh, okay. The people can't see it.
Yeah,
okay.
Only you can see it. I was looking for a flyer for this year's True Summit is what I'm looking for.
Okay, cool. No, that's the old one. That's the last year's. Yeah, so man, I said all that to say, you have cats laboring in the gospel, not because they are being forced by slavers, but because their hearts have been transformed by a gracious Christ, and they are compelled to believe him and share the gospel as a result. So yeah, man, that's my kind of 2 cents.
That's good. That's good. Go ahead. I'm listening. What you saying?
No, I was going to say, did you want me to text you the flyer for this year's?
No, I just found it. I think, and I'm going to bring it up
for this year's.
Yeah, I was preserving the 2000. Yeah, I got it. I'm going to show it here in a second.
Yeah, and if I can, I want to give a shameless plug as well.
No, I'm going to let you. I'm going to do that, and kind of talk to people a little bit about, if you could, kind of what you got going on this year, and maybe just kind of let folks know about that, kind of promote it, and as well if they want to kind of support or be involved in some way with the stuff you're doing, how can people do that, Pastor Isaiah? Because I think the stuff you're doing is a great blessing, and I had asked Adam Coleman, I said, who's a go-to person that I can have a good discussion about these matters that's accessible. Not some professor who's just strictly academic, but especially someone who gets the apologetics aspect of all this. And he was like, oh, Isaiah. And I was like, all right. And then once I started talking to you, I was like, oh, sheesh, clearly, Adam was right. So, I mean, you've got a wonderful lane that I'm just excited about. And I hope more people kind of understand how important it is to discuss these things and get amped about it, because it makes me excited. And I hope by the positive reactions, I think people in the live chat are excited as well. But, yeah, I'm going to put that up right now, and you break it down about the conference and all that.
Yeah, so actually this month on the 21st, which is a Thursday, I'm actually going to be doing a webinar on the history of the Black church. Nice. It's an hour and a half long webinar where I'm discussing really the history of the Black church in America. It's $10 to register, and all proceeds will go to the True Summit that's coming up in September. Now, let me tell you what I mentioned the True Summit earlier. Let me kind of rehash that. The True Summit is a conference that we're doing in September that's really designed to equip pastors and even lay people to understand the history of the Black church, the value of the Black church, the beauty and the benefit of the Black church, but also to be able to mount an apologetic against those that would disparage the Black church and use ahistorical claims to attack the Black church. So the True Summit will be happening September 13th and 14th in Cartersville, Georgia. And the theme is the Black church celebrating the history, securing the legacy, celebrating the legacy, securing the longevity. And we're going to be talking about, topics like doctrine and doxology, preaching in the African American tradition, apologetics in the Black church, the history and trajectory of the Black church. We're going to be talking about gospel motivated activism. We're also going to be talking about seminary, the Black church's response to theologically liberal, high priced and monocultural seminary. And we're going to be really, just really helping people to understand the truth about the Black church. Let me tell you why this is so crucial. I saw a meme on Facebook not too long ago from a quote unquote woke cat, and it said, "We have all these mega churches in the Black community, but we have no mega schools." And this meme had, golly, at the time that I saw it,
I saw that. I don't know.
You saw it.
Yep.
Yeah, at the time that I saw it, it had numerous likes and shares, right? And if the person that created that meme and posted the meme knew Black church history, they would know that the majority of the HBCUs, for example, Spelman was started in the basement of Friendship Baptist Church in Atlanta. Before it was called Spelman, it was the Atlanta Women's Seminary. Morehouse as well was started in the basement of an African American church. You have Morris Brown College, which, by the way, Morris Brown was an AME bishop. You have Edward Waters. You have Wilberforce in Ohio. Daniel Payne, Bishop Daniel Payne, was the first African American president of a college, and it was Wilberforce. And Daniel Payne happened to be a Black preacher. And so I can go down the list of the contributions that the Black church has made to education within the African American community. Where are the banks? Well, as a matter of fact, the first independent Black bank in the nation was the True Reformers Bank, started by a Black Methodist minister. And people can only make these claims when they don't know history, and people will only believe these claims when they don't know history.
And you're trying to rectify that.
Yeah. Now this can they see this graphic vocab right now?
Yeah, they can.
So that's last year's. That's actually last year.
My bad. Oh man, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But it said February 2019 on it.
Did it say? Oh, well, I think that was the save the date.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So that was the save the date for this year. So I think you got it. Yeah, no, that was the save the date flyer for this year. But it's not. So we actually changed the date. It's not going to be February 22nd and 23rd. It's going to be the True Summit is going to be September 13th and 14th. However, on the 21st of this month, I'll be doing a webinar on the history of the Black Church. And if you're interested in learning more, what's that?
How can people find that?
Yeah, so if you're interested in learning more about the webinar, go to www.thetruthsummit2019.eventbrite.com. So www.thetruthsummit2019.eventbrite.com.
All right, I'll drop it in there. How can they find out about the webinar, though? Where are they?
Yeah, so that'll be there.
Oh,
so
okay.
Actually, yeah. So when they click on the registration for the summit, they'll see the registration for the webinar, and if they register for the webinar, they'll be sent the link to join the webinar when it happens on the 21st. And again, like I said, it's an hour and a half of history, particularly history of the Black Church in America from 1619 when the slaves first arrived in Jamestown, Virginia. Really, we're going to go all the way up until today, and so it's gonna be a great conversation.
All right, well, it's exciting stuff. I really appreciate your contribution and everything that you brought out today, and for real. And now it is time to unlock the freestyle. And so I've got to go over here, and I've got to grab some of these beats. Now, are you cool to stick around for the first one? And I got 3 to do. After that, you could be dismissed if you want. But for the first one, maybe you can help me out by giving me some words to rap about.
Yeah, I'm down.
Now, I don't do this because I think I'm so dope. I do this because the people request it and we have fun. Just so everybody knows. All right, so let me get set up here. It's gonna take a second here to get this set up. But check this out, y'all. You guys made this happen. We're gonna call it the 3-style today. That's what we're gonna call it. And are you trying to make it 4 Rocks B? Oh boy, guys, 4 freestyles in one night. You guys are killing me.
You're gonna be up for a while, man.
I know, you're killing me. But so if I can get you, so you're not gonna be able to hear the beat, right? But if I can get you to kind of like give me different topics, you see what I'm saying, along the way, then I'll kind of flow off that. What do you think?
Yeah, no doubt, man.
All right. Well, I'm ready. Let me get this first one lined up here. Where'd it go? Let's go with this one right here. All right, here's the first one. Let me see how this sounds first. So Jonathan Soko gave us some brand new beats, everybody. And you're gonna see how these brand new beats sound. All right, well, Soko, that's your beat, so I'm gonna do it. All right, so I'll go like 4 bars, and then you just drop something we talked about or something like that, and then I'll freestyle about it. And you won't you won't be able to hear the beat, but you'll be able to tell kind of when I'm going or whatever, and just drop some topics and let's make this happen. All right, you guys made it happen. 4. I've never done 4 in one night, but let's have a Friday night party here. All right, let me turn up this beat. All right, here we go. Oh my goodness. All right, what's the first thing? What do I start off with, Isaiah?
Lyle.
All right, see, that's all you got to do, and every now and then just kind of inject something just like that, and I'll kind of go with it from there. That's perfect. All right, here we go. All right, Soko with the brand new beats, never heard before, premiere. Check the freestyle about George Liele. He didn't go to the Nile, but he went where the Lord took him. He booked him on a flight. Alright, he was not even white, but this dude was a missionary. This
Savannah.
is I'm Vocab stain planner. Now we're gonna speak about Savannah. NGA, the place where one of the first churches lay, and it would stay. You know that's not even enough. There's also a place that rhymes with bluff. That is another old congregation. Speak salvation to all pigmentation.
Liberated.
And then liberation means salvation, meaning free indeed. But my man, he bought his family's freedom with like $800 at 33. Yes, y'all, that's what he did. Not only himself, but also his kid. Freed all of them, his kin. That's how we do it with the gospel, my man.
Awakening.
This a first and second, mic check it. Okay, this is the Great Awakening. Let me go back to it. We liked the first better. We felt it was more true to it, the gospel. Jonathan Edwards, not a perfect man, but he went across the land. George Whitfield, they went to the cities and they went to the fields.
Preaching.
And they did this. They was outreaching. You know what they were doing? They were out preaching. You know the Holy Spirit was moving. He was hitting those who were seeking and those who were not. He did it everywhere, no matter the spot. The gospel was hot. It didn't cost a lot. The price was free, but
Liberia.
Yes, y'all. Okay, now please come and follow me. Let's speak about this brand new colony called Liberia, supposed to bring liberty. Some of the dudes went there as missionaries. They brought the activity, but it was not very easy. It was hard, they got scarred. Some even died and found their graveyard on the west coast of Africa. Please don't laugh at the sacrifice that these men made for Christ. It was much more than beans and rice Christianity. They brought stuff and they brought salvation all across the nation. Yes, y'all. Okay, now I speak upon the man named not Paul, but David. He was so brave. First missionary. He saw many people saved, maybe even 500. Man, this is you did a good job, but I was only so. I gotta do better on this next one.
Down, brother.
But it's still fun. It's still fun. Okay, what about you guys? Is the beat too loud? You know who I trust most? D New, because you know that the beat needs to be loud. D New, but you also know that you still got to be able to hear the vocals. So let me know about how that beat sounds. And now it's time to go to the next beat.
Yo, Vocab.
Yes, sir.
Did you still want me to hang around?
Let's do one more. Let's do one more. If you're
Okay,
if you
all
can,
right.
if you're down.
Right.
You down?
Cool.
All right.
Yep.
Let's see how this. Ooh, that beat's real nice. Okay, 2 minutes and 35 seconds of fire with this beat. This beat's real nice. All right. Everybody ready? All right, let's go here. All right, so it's a little loud. Okay, I'll try to get it better. Let me do a sound check. Sound check can be right about there. What about there, y'all? What about there, y'all? Okay. Okay, what's the first one starting off? Pastor Isaiah.
Missionary.
Okay, here we go. All right, here we go. Even though I had the wrong date, props to the man Montrose, Waite. Check it out, the Lord prepared thee. Man named Montrose to be a missionary. It was kind of scary. He had to face racists and the situation was hairy, but he still did it. This dude was ill with the ill wisdom. And yes, he was black. He had a nice hat. He faced opposition. He was a cool cat. Wherever he went, you know they built him a hut. The dude was ill. He kicked Satan in the butt. Montrose, Waite, the man who couldn't wait. He brought the gospel glory. It had a lot of weight. Yes, yes, y'all, save the date. There's been racism and it's still going on even lately. And it's kind of messy. Why y'all dudes wanna be so sloppy, impeding the gospel because you're hostile? The black dudes bring in your racism's colossal. It makes your heart hard like a fossil, but you gotta stop it still. Yes, y'all, you know who's the man who was a Pan-African. It was not the boys or even Garvey. The Lord started back, old school Atari. Started before, they were a warrior for God from everywhere, shore to shore. Yes, y'all going back to preach the gospel, even though some of the natives were hostile. It's all good, they were like apostle. Here we go again, and now the beat is hot like a hot still. Who's the next one with the freestyle skill? So let me rap this. He mentioned the Baptists. They went around and they did attract this. Many natives to the gospel, even Indians, bringing the gospel for men and women of every type of color. Sister and a brother had revivals everywhere, even undercover.
Freedom.
Meaning they had to do it while a slave. Thank God some got free. That was a brave move. They should have done it a long time ago. These dudes got freedom from Jesus, you know, down in their soul plus physical. Some only experienced it spiritual, but when they get to heaven, have both kind. This is a freestyle from the top of the mind. Yes, y'all, Isaiah brought it. He speak about grace, he spoke about race, he spoke about the dudes who was keeping the pace. They was running real fast, and they had to lace the shoes even when they didn't have no boots. The dude was kinda ill, they were like some troops for Jesus Christ and the Lord's army. This is the end, thank you Soka for the harmony. Alright, so that was the second one.
Dope.
That one turned out a little better. See, you just gotta go. I don't know. I mean, Robertson. How much time you got?
Man, you know, it's 1:30 a.m. in Atlanta, brother.
All right, I'll let you go and just give me the topic to start it off with. How about that?
All right, topic to start it off with. Nova Scotia.
All right. God bless, man. Thanks. I got 2 more freestyles to do without you. I'm gonna try to do my best, man. And now you guys
Vocab.
Hey, God bless you too. For everyone, say peace out to Isaiah. All right, guys, 2 more to go in the live chat. Let me know what to say, okay? You guys give me the beats. Let me see. Ooh, Soko's bringing the fire. Soko brought the fire, didn't he? All right, you guys are a lot of fun up in here making this happen. You guys are making me work hard. Let's do a mic check real quick. How about that level? Ooh, that beat is nice. Ooh, yeah, that's nice. Okay. I like that beat right there. Okay, so here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me? All right, we got 2 more. Wait, 6. Nate, are you keeping track? Do we really have 6? We've done 2. Now I'm just trusting you at this point. So I've not been able to look at the super chat while I'm rapping. It's hard to. But Nate, you tell me how many I've got to do. I know that I have 2 left, and it's so awesome that Jonathan happened to send all these brand new beats today. He actually sent more than 3, and I just downloaded them. All right, let's go. Here we go. Okay. The beat comes up beside ya. I see the man, Iron Spiker. He's talking about the rhyme will blow ya. Speaking of Nova Scotia, you know the truth, it was for the role. It was a Calvinist stronghold, but I cannot forget the Methodists. I don't want to be negligent. Okay, Roxby, I see you, talking about, he has goals. Here we go, technology, coming to you, street epistemology. I see the man named Marshall Villager. Check it out now, I'm not a pillager. Soko is of the crates and the beats. Here we go, it's late, I bring the heat. Yes, y'all, I'm coming with the crew. What's up to y'all? I see you, D-New. I see Nate too, D-2-2. I did 2 freestyles, I got now 2 more to go. I'm a metaphor warrior. Here we go again. Who is keeping store? Yes, y'all. I can't wait to taste communion in the morning. Hypostatic union, meaning the nature of God divine mixed with the human. No, not mixed. That's heresy. Unwind that. Rewind it back. It's unmixed. I read the creeds. It said that hypostatic, hypostasis. Same on the dudes who was so racist. Okay, yes, y'all, we got to rip. Why is D-New saying to rap about myth? Okay, I'm the mic controller. Douglas Reed says rap about the solars. Faith, grace, alone. Vocab Malone. I spit this tome. It's Christ alone to his glory alone. Here we go, it's a story in a poem. Okay, we can't ignore this. I'm a young buck like Samuel Morris. God gave me that gift of prayer. That gift was rare. He was up in there. He's with the sailors. They didn't like him, but he saw through the sin. And he preached, yes, y'all, like a student of the Bible. Sammy Moore's my man led a revival. 20 plenty in Indiana. The bloodstained banner bring damage to Satan's kingdom. I'm rapping not to sing 'em. Here we go again, and now we will ring 'em. Ring 'em, why? I'm the bride of Christ. I rock this mic device. Okay, it's nice. Yes, y'all, Friday night, we're bringing it ill. This is the end of the beat, so chill. Alright, so that's 3 freestyles. Let me know. This time I was trying to rap with what you guys were saying. That's 3. So tell me, Nate, how many I've got. So I've done 3 so far. And I tell you what, if this is the last one, this last beat, I'll do a kind of a longer one, because all those have been in the 2.5 minute mark. Now I'll do a little bit longer one. This is the 3.5 minute mark. Let me see this one right here. Let me see how this beat sounds. Ooh, this beat's crazy. That's kind of a crazy beat, man. What are you trying to do to me, Soko? All right, let's see here. Is this the 4th one? Is this the last one? Guys, help me know. Help me know. All right, yeah, I got you. Let me try a different beat. For the last one, I want to do a kind of a different tone. Let me see here. All right, it's the last one, everybody. Here we go. Let me hear those sounds, though. Wait, which one are you saying you liked, Julian? Which one are you saying you liked? Now I lost track. Are you saying the first one? If you liked it, I'll go to it. Now I'm lost. Which one? You saying that one? Well, Julian, all right, I'll do that one for you if that's the one you were talking about. All right, here we go. I think it's the last one unless we get more. You guys are crazy. All right, let's do this thing. Let's do this thing. Man, you guys are crazy people up in here. Let's see. Robertson, Atlanta. All right, here we go. All right. Ba-boom, 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 boom. Almost time to end bring in the beat like a lyrical ninja. Spin it around. Yes, yes, y'all, now we know we get down. 1, 2, 3, I don't rock the crown. I'm not the king, he is, I am down. With the king of Run DMC. Yes, yes, y'all, most definitely. It's an old school beat, call me a BC. Boy, destroy, I bring the noise. Jesus the Christ, he ain't no toy. He's the king of kings, I do his thing. I do his bidding with my offering. Sacrifice on the white mic. I rock it right into the hours of the night. Yes, yes, y'all, we rock it, son. Props to Isaiah Robertson. That is my man from Atlanta. I slay the beat like Atlanta. Atlanta, sleigh bells, I can tell. Vocab Malone, I'm safe from hell. But the beat is fire, it's hot as hell. I'll rock the microphone, call me LL Cool VOCAB. Yes, yes, y'all, most definitely. Did it, now you know we done it. Make sure you attend the Truth Summit 2019, get in line. Eventbrite, and you will find the live stream he's gonna do on the divine. Working, searching, grab the beat, I'm twerking. Just kidding, I'm ripping, I'm flipping. I rock the microphone, call me the Vivens. Who is that? A kid from middle school? Man, I don't know, I'm living a fool. Okay, I got the beat, hand in glove. I see the emojis by Radical Love. Yes, y'all think God I'm believing. What's up, Mark Cleveland, Vocabulary, Gerard Perry, Julian West. Don't be scared of DB by SoCo. When it hits, they say, oh no. And now I read, what's up, built for speed. I'm freed indeed, the blood I bleed ain't nothing but it is if it's from JC on Calvary. Upon that tree in Jerusalem, 33 AD. He saved me, opened up the door, and now I go out on the road to tour. A traveling evangelist. The beat is begging, you can't handle this. Damn man, it's just can't damage this. We rock the microphone, where's the bandages? Cause the bandages, cause the beat is sick. So I grabbed this mic, I began to spit. Yes, y'all, I'll rip like a Christmas gift when you open it up on January 5th. Cause it came in late, inside the mail. I deliver Malone, you can tell, I will never fail. He's holding me close, I spit the vowels through my nose and through my mouth. North, south, east, west, the beat is a bet. Yes, yes, y'all, it is so fresh. I need a drink of water to get my breath. Okay, I'm rapping, I'm ripping. Here we go, Miss Piggy in the live chat with the boom back. Party people in the back where you at. Yes, yes, y'all, Adam's sons and daughters. Now, we need some water. Why I oughta swim like an otter. The beat is ill, call it cannon fodder. It blows up, boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. Jesus Christ, he will consume. Turn the volume way, way up. To the party people, go ahead, stand up. I'll rip it up like Bruce Jeans. Bruce Banner is who I mean. He is green, then he turns into the Hulk. Hey yo, Soko, it's all your fault. Ha! Was that 4 freestyles? I think that was 4 freestyles. Man, it's your guys' fault. I think that was 4. I tell you what, since you guys killed it on this, if you want, not if you want. To those who want it, I'm going to do a bonus one. It's a minute and a half, so it's a very short freestyle, but I'm going to do it just because you guys were super awesome. Now, I'm going to end on this. I'm not going to play the outro. So I'm literally going to end this while I'm rapping, all right? So here we go. All right, it's only a minute and a half. This is the outro, everybody. And we're going to end the show. Wait, did I already rap on this? No, I didn't rap on this. All right, this is the outro, everybody. That could have been just 3. Well, now I'm doing another one, Roxby. Here we go. Time to have some fun with my man Speed 101. The time is done. It was a live stream. It was kind of ill. Thanks for giving green. You're on my team. Street apologist. Stand up. It's a college kids on the internet. It's necessary. Last name Malone. First name vocabulary. So I rock it. Dross. Yo. What's up, David? Doss. No dross. It's only gold. Jesus Christ. He saved my soul. I mess up. I'm running out of gas, but thank you very much for giving cash. I will pass. Vocab Malone, I itch like a scratch. What the fuck? But no DJ. Put the gospel on display. 3-way call to Isaiah. He's a pastor. Read the chapter. Turn the volume up. Turn it up. Stand up. Turn the volume up. You guys are ran out of gas. That's the last one I could do. All right, y'all. Y'all are awesome. You made it happen. God bless. Remember, I'm going to be live with Jeff tomorrow. And I'm dropping a 5-minute premiere tomorrow as well. Be sure to check it out on the channel. You guys are too much. Much love to y'all. God bless.